Yep.
Hey, how are you doing? I'm Brent here with Lifts, Ladders, and Docks in Southwest Michigan. Here with a very hot topic today. We got a lot of questions on it. Wetsuits. A lot of you may have seen some of our videos in the past of our foam floats and our boat lift cranes, specifically one that we were installing or actually removing a dock and a lift, showing the floats when it was like 28 degrees or something that day, a bunch of snow. So we've been getting a ton of calls. Been meaning to do this video for a while. People asking what kind of suit, where do you get it, what brands, where do I start on sizing, all that. So we're gonna do a little quick tutorial today on the main things. Hopefully it makes a lot more sense. We're not getting paid by any of these, websites or companies. I'm just telling you my personal preferences and what I find the most comfortable for me. So, and where I typically get them. We've got many options. A lot of people think we're wearing dry suits. I don't recommend those. They're very, very expensive. If you're jet skiing or wake surfing or something in December around here, that might be worth it. But for doing dock stuff, you are guaranteed basically to put a hole in it at some point, and it's going to be nearly worthless. Same with waders. Do yourself a favor and forget the waders for dock installations. Unless you have 2 or 3 sections, you just got to put them in quick. They are terrible. You're going to get waves over the top. You're going to poke holes in them and be full of water. They're uncomfortable. Every time you dip your arm in and lift up to level a dock or anything, all that water is dripping down inside. So do yourself a favor, get rid of the waders. You will be very happy, and generally speaking, when you spend an appropriate amount of money on the right gear, you're going to be far happier in general. But mainly you're going to gain a couple months out of your summer. Using your jet skis more, on your wakeboard, whatever floats your boat, you're going to be using it all the time, and you can get in sooner, and maybe you can even drop your installer and gain a few months there instead of waiting for them. So typically by the time you buy floats and the right tools to install it and that suits, 2 or 3 years of paying for an installation, you're probably going to do a lot better job than some of them might do, and you're going to not be trapped on their schedule, especially if you're kind of out further and don't have a good, reliable, and steady, crews coming to your lake. So a lot of options here. I'm going to start with our main one that you see in a lot of the videos. I ride stand-up jet skis basically all year round with a lot of my friends. Same thing, we're just wearing wetsuits. A few of them have dry suits for that, where they're not going to be poking holes in it. And they seem pretty sweet until nature calls. I was told by a diving instructor one time that there's 2 types of people in the world. People who pee in wetsuits and people who lie about it. So that's another problem there. But anyway, with a proper fitting wetsuit, that's the main thing that matters. There's several styles and everything, it just comes down to comfort then. But to get the warmth that you need, the wetsuit works by trapping a layer of water between you and the suit, and your body is going to use its core temp to warm that water up, and that's creating more of the buffer between you and the cold lake water than the actual suit itself. So the suit is insulating the water, not you from the water. So if you got a suit that's too tight, it's going to be cutting off circulation. That's bad and uncomfortable. If you have a suit that's too loose, it's going to be flushing fresh water through, especially through the bottom. And you're just going to, it's better than nothing, obviously, but you're going to be losing that full effect of it and get chilled pretty fast. So one way I like to cheat, if you're at home, instead of getting into the water dry and then having to heat up that cold water, especially if there's ice on the lake, you can either jump in the shower first, or a lot of the professional installers will carry a thermos of hot water with them to the first job of the day, dump that in the suit. So if you just jump in the shower, you're starting with warm water in there, and you're already going to have that buffer built up rather than losing some of your core heat. So main suit that I have, we have a ton of brands here, a bunch of different styles. I personally always choose these Hyperflex suits, or I have several XL suits as well, and the thicker ones. The suits are all rated with a couple numbers almost always on the left sleeve of the suit. on any brand. This is a 4-3. So when you're shopping, that's one of the most important things that you're gonna see. You gotta determine the right size for you and then the right thickness. 4-3, when you see two numbers like that, it means it's 4 mil thick on the core area, front and back, and then 3 mil thick everywhere else. If you see a scuba suit, they're generally one thickness the whole way through. They're not an athletic cut. They're not meant to move. They can be had pretty cheap for really thick, but those are meant to be, staying underwater, like actually scuba diving. So those are 5 mil, 7, 10, whatever, but very uncomfortable, hard to move in. So I go for the surf style suits. There's two different styles in these thicknesses. And I'm 6'1", I go from anywhere every single year. I swing from 180 to 210 pounds. I buy all extra large long. That long is what I buy for all of our shop suits. That covers a variety of our guys that help us and friends that help at our personal cottage. Even if they're a little bit shorter than 6'1", 5'6" or something, having that extra length doesn't kill you. But XLs fit me as well. I just like that extra cuff to tuck over the top of my boot. So especially if you're stepping up on the dock or over seawall, it's not gonna come up and let all that fresh water flood in. So XL long fits me. You can go up or down from there based on your body type and height and all that, but that's a good place to start. We always recommend to buy local, shop local if you have a surf shop around you. In Michigan, there's enough of them. In Minnesota, Wisconsin, we got viewers from all over, but if that's not an option, I recommend trying several sizes all at once there's a website I use called wetsuitwarehouse.com, or you can go on Amazon and just order several, on Prime and try them on back to back to back to get the best feel, and maybe 2 different brands, and just send back the ones that don't fit great. So on those, and the surf style, they have a very athletic cut that are meant to move as a surfer. So you have the common back zip style. These are generally a little bit cheaper. This one is a Billabong brand 5'4". I chose this even though I honestly kind of hate the back zip style. I chose this because this is a nice thick suit without a hood integrated. A lot of times when you get up to a 6'5'4", you get the hood with it. So this is a Billabong 5'4" back zip. You'll see the rookies out there where they are wearing them backwards with the zipper on their chest, and the knee pad is in the back of their knee and super uncomfortable. And they'll think it fits really awful, and probably does when it's backwards. So these are easier to get in and out of if you're just doing this a couple times a year. It's not a big deal if you're doing it all the time. Maybe that's worth having that difference to you, just to be able to get in and out easier. If you wear an athletic, tight shirt under it, like a heat gear kind of thing, Under Armour or whatever, it helps you slip in and out a lot easier from any suit. So to me, I much prefer the chest zip style. This one is going to leak a little bit of water through the zipper, and I just find it generally uncomfortable with how this Velcro comes up on the collar, and it just kind of chafes your neck. And decent option, especially if you're not using it all the time. Just got to get a bunch of cheap suits for your buddies to help you put your dock in, or to use occasionally in weird sizes. Or if you just have trouble getting in and out, it would be an option for you. But that same thickness is going to be colder in that style than having a chest zip. It seals you up better. So this is my Hyperflex Viral 4-3. Get most of these on wetsuitwarehouse.com. Bought some on Amazon. Generally spend, anywhere from like 99 bucks for the cheapest ones I ever got on sale, and then usually 200, 250. It's probably more now with all the COVID and inflation and all that. But anyway, these have this collar that flips up and over. So when you're doing your docks, walking around, most of your time is spent, waist deep water or less, just walking back and forth. I generally keep the collar off. It's a little more comfortable that way. And then when you're getting up into chest deep water, flip it back over. But these are tougher because you got to get in and out basically of the shoulder. kind of the head hole. So it's kind of multi-layered in there. They kind of crisscross over. Having that Under Armour shirt really helps you slip in and out. These are kind of difficult, but same thing when you get out of the water. Like I said, starting in the shower. You can also end in the shower if you're at home. I like to do that. I just jump right in. I flood the suit full of water so that the legs will fill up, and it'll help me with the weight of that water, help peel it off. And then generally speaking, I just sit there and wash myself and just let the soap run down on the suit, leave it in the bottom. That way it's washing the suit out as well as you're going, and it's pretty harmless as a detergent. Shouldn't damage your suit too much, especially with just occasional use. So then you just hang it up to dry. I always leave it inside out so that the inside layer, which is now exposed, will dry. Makes it a lot easier to slip back on, and that dries quite quickly, usually overnight. But the other side that's not exposed, that can stay wet for months in some cases. So it's always easier and best to just leave them inside out when you're done. That way you flip it right before you're ready to go. A lot more pleasant to put it back on. But anyway, so these chest zip styles, the other beauty of these is when you zip that shut, if you're cautious, you can use that little pouch under here that is created to shove your ratchet, your wrenches. Just be careful if you're bending down that way, obviously, but if you're out jet skiing, sometimes I've tucked my phone in there in a Ziploc bag under my life jacket and pinned it in place when I'm riding late in the winter by myself sometimes. So that is my favorite. I've got probably 10 of these between 4.3 millimeter or 3.2. If you're gonna buy one suit and one suit only, I recommend everyone in the upper Midwest area where it's chilly to get a 4.3. It is always better to be too warm than too cold. If you're out there when there's ice on the water, if you're an installer, that's where you'd want to look into 6.54 if you're doing it regularly, or if you're really into wake surfing or water skiing, early in the morning and it's super cold all the time. But a lot of times you're going to find that that's too hot if you're not sustained in the water. So 4.3 is the one to go to. You can always dip down in the water and flood the collar and pull that down, flood it if you got to chill off a little bit. But once you start getting chilled, it's game over, especially if you're stuck there all day. So a 3.2 may work for some people, especially if you're putting your dock in late May, early June. You're probably fine then, but a lot of people are itching before April. At that point, sometimes the minute the lake is halfway thawed, people are jumping in, even just weekend warriors. So 4.3 is gonna not be great for that, but if you put a rain jacket over the top, that'll make it a lot warmer. That is key to stopping that wind going through there. But otherwise, you can stack that rain jacket on top of a 3.2 as well, and it kind of splits some of the difference. So just depends on what you're gonna do and where, but 4.3 would be my go-to. Like I mentioned, if you are in ice water, true ice water all the time, or if you have to dive down, you can go up to a 6.54. That means it's 6 mil thick on the core area, 5 on the legs, and then 4 on the arms when you get the 3 numbers that way. So that means it's a little bit easier to move on your shoulders, but you still get a lot of extra warmth in your core and your legs where you're getting it the most. These do have a hood sewn on pretty much always. It kind of drives me nuts, but generally when it's that cold, you kind of need it, especially if it's raining down or if you're diving down underwater a lot. But otherwise, it makes it very hard to hear, hard to look, and just uncomfortable. And then it kind of bunches up if you try to just leave it off. It kind of makes it a big collar. So that is a must when you're in that kind of stuff, but most of you watching this will not be. So other times jet skiing, I'm going to post some pictures in this video. We're just in complete ice on Lake Michigan, and some other lakes around here was in a 4.3. There's another one I'll probably put on there that would be in the 6.54 with the hood. You probably see that bunched up under my helmet. I wear a helmet a lot of times for the GoPro, so I just kept that down. But, the other options here, like I said, to kind of split the difference between suits. Just like if you're sweaty in the winter and you're leaving the gym, you get chilled from that evaporative cooling of your sweat. So if you have a wetsuit and you're getting in and out of the water, you're spending most of your time out of the water while you're putting that dock in, or when you're jet skiing, you're probably getting sprayed, but then most of the time you're just getting blasted by the wind, and now you're wet. So it's actually gonna be chilling you. A lot of times we'd be at a dock install and it may be, 38 degrees outside and the water's 45, and we'd be sitting down in the water, and the customer would say, "What the heck are you doing?" And the water is actually warmer, and stopping that wind, you're warmer. So I just use typically this. It's a Enduro motocross jacket, so it's really tough, waterproof, and it's meant to be, run through sticks and things. So if you're snagging it on the dock, it's not that much of a concern. Otherwise, just a cheap rain jacket, anything that is completely windproof, is going to be a huge, huge benefit. Even if you don't have a wetsuit, it's going to be soaking wet. It's obviously not going to keep you dry. It's going to be drenched inside and out, but it's stopping the wind, which is the other most critical thing besides having that well-fitting suit. So I like that. That one's for moose racing. It's nice and light still. There's other options for hoodies. You can get like a tour coat like this. This is from Hyperflex. Jet Pilot has them. They're meant to be very oversized and baggy. I keep a few of these in the boat to pass around to friends, especially if you're wake surfing and taking turns. But these also work well with that oversized fit, so you can put them over a life jacket comfortably. I like to put mine under it. Doesn't matter, especially if you're just kind of stuck in between, or if you're doing the dock install, especially a professional installer. This is a way to easily shed that extra bit. A lot of times we'll be sitting there in 70-degree air, 80-degree air sometimes, and the water could very well still be 40 degrees, depending on the lake you're at and the time of year. And there's a lot of times where you're about to have a heat stroke, even in a 4-3. But then when you're in the water, that's where you really need it. So having something that comes off quick and easy is a lot better. And again, being too hot is always best. You can always go out swimming and dip that collar down and flood your suit. There's other options like, for the really casual person, you can go with the overall style, have long johns, and then you can stack it with one of those tour coat hoodies, or they make a lot of surf rashy style shirts, that are 2 mil thick. You can put on top. If you're getting in deep water, there's gonna be water running through that up and under here. You're gonna get chilled, but for a lot of people who are super casual, just want to be comfortable and maybe use it a little bit here and there jet skiing, that might be an okay option too. It just depends on what you're trying to get out of all this. So you probably noticed my gloves here. This is huge. We wear nitrile gloves from Harbor Freight. They have these 5 mil thick ones that's basically for doing greasy work. They're thin latex type surgical gloves. They are nitrile. They tear easy. You won't want those, but they have a couple options that are thicker. I'm wearing the 7 mil right now. I always stack a couple pairs of these. When it's really cold, I do the 9 mil, or if I know I'm going to be around a bunch of sharp stuff, depending on where I'm working. These are a lot more tear resistant. If you do happen to rip one of the outside pairs, you'll A, have a couple stacked, and B, each layer is going to trap a little bit of water through there and work just like your wetsuit will. And it's inherently blocking the wind. So that is huge. If you are wearing these rubber coated gardening gloves, like we see tons of people do, super basic common stuff. If you're barehanded in these gloves, you are actually making your hands worse with that evaporative cooling when they get wet. If you're just the person carrying dock from the yard out down the dock and hand it off to somebody in the water, then that's going to be better than just these when you're touching all the cold metal. But unless you're moving your boat hoist, if it's covered in zebra mussels or something, and jagged sharp, you might want these to save your other gloves. But without the nitrile under it, you are actually making your hands worse than being barehanded by having that, trapping that water. And a lot of times they start freezing up and we get really uncomfortable, and they're literally making your hands worse. Same thing applies with neoprene gloves. If you get wetsuit gloves, these are made for scuba diving mainly, or surfing, where you're in the water. And if you're going to continue to be in the water and don't have that wind, then these are going to be the warmest option. So it just depends on how much you're going to be in it, actually dipping your hands. if you're jet skiing or doing something you need all that dexterity, like putting dock bolts in, you will drop tons of bolts in these too, no matter what. But sometimes stacking these on top of the nitrile is the best of both. You're getting the extra insulation in the water, but also getting that wind resistance out of it. And your hands will be sweating inside there. So those things are generally very uncomfortable and hard to put on. It's gonna feel like Jello when you're trying to grip anything, but there are good applications for them. If you do nothing else and you don't have any inclination to buy a suit, I recommend these to any lake owner, no matter what. Even if you're not doing your dock, just to have around. These are SEAC brand 6mm hard sole booties. They have a hard boot sole on them. That is super critical. Just getting that grip going down over, your riprap seawall, through your rocks. I talked to a dock installer one time at a job. He was on shore, everyone else is in the water, and I asked him why. He said he just hopped in off a dock one time and had soft sole booties on like that. There was a piece of concrete from an old seawall or something right there. It was just very shallow water, very low jump, no big deal, he thought. And there's a piece of rebar sticking out of that concrete, and it actually speared up, went into his heel, followed up his Achilles, and basically was touching his calf muscle all the way up his leg. Fully impaled himself just on this little piece of rebar with the soft booties. So that was enough to convince me on these hard sole. If you're stepping down and tripping through the riprap rocks, I've bruised my heel on these a bunch before I knew about these hard sole ones. A lot of times I would have the taller model of these, and SEAC actually makes these same boots, but in this soft sole, and they are meant to go in scuba fins, basically, or just to be a little more comfortable if you're just looking for kind of a beach shoe. But I still always prefer these with the hard boot sole. They have this reinforced rubberized toe box, so if you're kicking things, you're kicking your foot pads as you're carrying your dock supports out. They're a lot more resilient. And with any of this stuff, the wetsuits, if you do poke a hole, unlike your dry suits or your waders, you can always patch them with a little bit of shoe goo, have that flexible patch, and just kind of plug it. Even if there is a hole, it's still going to be retaining a lot of the water, depending on the size of the hole. And there's other patch kits too, of actual neoprene kits. I find a lot of times the adhesive will start to dry up over time and crack. Like you see everyone with the patched waders. They're never waterproof at that point, but as long as you're stopping most of that flow through where you're getting that fresh cold water, exchanging out with your warm body water in there, that's when you can get in trouble. So just plugging up most of those with some shoe goo. When the inevitable poke happens from dock bolts, even on old wood dock, you got clamps and whatnot. The aluminum dock, you always get the corners on them, especially when you're carrying it. So it will happen at some point. But generally you're still far better off with any of these things, even if you don't patch it. So these SEAC ones are my favorite, even just to wear around the lake. They are 6mm thick, so I wear these in the ice. I wear them jet skiing a lot of times. Sometimes I find my foot will roll over the edge of it, which is kind of uncomfortable for active stuff like that. So you can do more like these XL booties that are meant for surfing. They have an even softer sole than both of these. So you get a lot more feeling like if you're on a surfboard or on a jet ski, that can be nice, but you wouldn't want those for doing docks, especially if you're going over any rock or kind of unknowns. There's all sorts of nails and old railroad spikes and glass and everything in the lake. So even in general, just to wear these around, these are super critical. If you do not have a wetsuit on, they do not get too hot, even in the middle of the summer. Just because they are transferring that water through. But when you roll your wetsuit down over the top of them, same with the gloves, if you put these on before the wetsuit, it really will seal that in. And when you walk in the water, even though these are not dry suits, it will take a couple minutes for that water to start really trickling up. So they do seal quite well, but without that, they stay very comfortable even in a hot summer day in warm water. So the downside of that with the open top, if you are wearing them just as beach shoe, water shoe, you're gonna get sand and rocks and stuff in there. That drives me nuts. I can't stand that, especially in actual water shoes that are all vented and they're supposed to flow stuff out, but they don't. So I always use these booties, or the socks with the booties. And these neoprene socks from Cressy are just dive socks. They don't provide any warmth, but they do, just like that Under Armour heat gear or whatever you want to wear, your athletic gear. It helps you slip not only your leg out of the suit a lot easier, but gets the boots on and off a lot easier as well, especially when they are wet. If you do need a little bit of extra, like if you are jet skiing, I have Works H2O, actual jet ski boots. When we're doing flips and barrel rolls and stuff, it gives us a lot more ankle support, but they are not insulated at all. So then I wear these 2 mil thick wet socks. So I get a little bit of warmth, and that gets me down to 55 degrees of water comfortably for a while. So at least for a tank of gas. But what I do with these, if I'm wearing in the summer, you can get these in a thinner version as well with a tall top. I always kind of blouse them up and over the top of the boots. So looks really stupid. I kind of tuck them up and around my leg, and then that seals out most of the rocks, little pebbles and all the sand and junk, especially if you're in some softer muck. That'll seal a lot of it out. You still do get a little bit that trickles down next to your leg, especially if you're moving a lot and in deeper muck, but that'll keep most of just the casual pebbles and sand out. I do the same thing with that on my jet ski shoes, and makes things a whole lot easier, a lot more comfortable. Just looks kind of stupid, but anyway, so those are the basics of everything. The wetsuits, no matter what you do, again, warmer is better, having a good fit is better. To trap that water, starting with warm water inside it, and then as soon as you're done, as soon as you get out of the water, we see a lot of professional installers. Sometimes if they're on a short job, they'll just go and run their truck. If it's 32 degrees or 28 degrees or something, they'll just leave the truck running, heat's blasting, they get in with their wetsuit and they sit there shivering. A lot of times, because we see them without the rain jacket, so they're chilling themselves without realizing it. They think that they're doing the best thing by having an expensive suit on, or sometimes not. But generally any of these suits for $100 to $300 are going to do a ton. But that rain jacket is the best thing on top of that. So we'll see them sit there melting their face off in the truck, but they're still shivering and their core temperature is still dropping because they don't have that, or they didn't have that outer layer on stopping the wind through it. And then it's just still chilling them off. It's still cold water in that suit for a long time. By the time that truck heat, does finally warm up the full thickness of the suit, you already dropped your core temp too far. So as soon as you're out of the water, especially if you're at your house, don't bother cleaning up your tools and all that. The very first thing, even if it's 35 degrees out, strip the top of your suit down. Even if you're bare skin walking around or just in board shorts, rip that suit off as fast as you can. Or like I said, go jump in the shower, flood it full of warm water. It helps you get it off, and you can clean it in there. But otherwise, these surf ponchos, you can find them on Amazon. It's basically a Snuggie towel. I keep a bunch of these in the boat. I always take them jet skiing with me. All my friends, both in boat and jet skiing, always laughed at me until they all tried them, and now they all own them. It's fantastic to wear around. You can use this as a changing robe to change out in the yard. A lot of people wear compression shorts over their wetsuit. Some people go naked. Some people wear board shorts. I think that's crazy with the board shorts. Terribly uncomfortable with having it all bunched up inside the suit, but to each their own. So even if you got to strip that top down and it's cold out, you're going to be far better off having exposed but quickly dry skin, even in the winter air. This is a good buffer while you are changing. It's going to start drying you off. If you're in the boat after going wake surfing, these are great. Or just swimming or whatever, riding around wet. These are awesome to put on. You can stand up, walk around. You don't have to worry about your towel coming unrolled and falling off you. It's not going to flap around in the breeze. It's basically just a giant towel Snuggie. So you find these on Amazon, surf poncho. They make some thin ones if you're in a hot area and just want that coverage, but I like the thick towel style. You can get them with pockets, which are really nice. And I keep a bunch of those in the boat, and everyone shares them and loves them. So it just looks goofy, but those are the basic principles of everything. That's kind of what we choose and why on all this stuff. Not saying it's the best, but I go out, jet skiing year round, and generally we're, even in the water working, whoever's on shore saying, "Oh, that's crazy! I can't believe you're in the water." A lot of times with the right stuff, we are actually warmer than they are, and it's just perplexing. But the right gear, it makes all the difference in the world. You're going to make your money back if you do install your dock. You're going to gain time every year. You're going to use your toys, your jet skis, your wakeboards, tubes, whatever. You're going to use them far more if you're comfortable. Spend a couple $100, $500 on it, whatever you want. If you want to spend more, you can get a variety of suits. You can get shorty suits to, do whatever the weather is that day. Just depends on what you want to do. But that's what we typically go for. Again, just to recap, CX 6mm hard sole boots, and I really like the Hyperflex 4.3mm or an XL 4.3, really any 4.3 chest zip style suit, surf suit. So thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. If you didn't enjoy this video and learn a bunch, we appreciate the follows and the subscriptions on YouTube, sharing it on your lake page, your association page on Facebook. That really helps us out, and we appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you on the water sometime. Thank you.